You need to participate in a conversation, not just in an interview. Now, typically, listed questions are boring. Typically, questions that tee your guest up for an answer or for a way to promote themselves and themselves only, they're boring. What's more interesting? When you dig deeper. When instead of asking a guest, hey, I hear you have a book about getting more leads. Tell me more about that book.
Your podcast should be your most powerful business development tool, a trust and authority builder, and your content creation engine. Let's help your podcast help your business with the Story Trust Media Podcast. Here's your host, John Gehring.
You know what instantly makes a podcast 10,000 times better? It's when the host stops asking boring questions. It's as simple as that. So say you have a guest on, and how many times have you heard this? The guest comes on, and the first thing the host asks is, hey, Joey, how you doing today? Hey, I'm so glad you're on the podcast today. How's the weather out there? Nobody cares. When you stop asking boring questions, you actually communicate to your audience that their time is valuable. Remember, your audience is not there just to sit in on some casual conversation you had with Joey. They're there to get value from the conversation that you have. So you need to cut out those boring questions if you want to communicate with your audience that their time matters to you. And respecting their time builds trust. So, just for the sake of clarity, what are some of those boring questions that I'm talking about? Because there's some liberty that I'm taking by just broad brushing all these questions as boring. What I mean by boring questions is any questions such as, how are you doing? How's the weather? Any of those more personal, fluffy questions that would be considered more small talk, right? Totally unrelated to the topic at hand, right? It's important in podcasting, as much as people like to say that podcasts are great because they're free-flowing, easy conversations, they're authentic, you can talk about whatever you want, and certainly you have the liberty to, but that doesn't mean that you're sending the right message to your audience when you're wasting their time with small talk that doesn't matter to them. Again, why is your audience showing up? Is it for you? Is it for your guests? Or is it for them? Is it because they have a problem that they know that you're equipped to help them solve? Or they have questions that they know that the guest you're bringing on can help them answer? Or they need tips that a conversation that you have with somebody can help unearth for them? That's why they're showing up. They're not there for you. They're not even there for a celebrity guest that you have on. They're there for them. And that's true of any entertainment or content consumption that anyone does. Think about why you watch your favorite show. It provides you some sort of value. Now, that value may just be entertainment, but that's still value. You're not doing it out of some loyalty to someone. As soon as they wasted your time, you'd be gone. That's exactly how people think about your podcast. So again, we don't care what the weather's. We don't care how your guest is doing on that particular day. What we do care about are the solutions that they can provide. So stop asking your guest boring questions. Now, here's the other side of this. Too often, we have a list of questions that we simply just ramble off. And a few weeks ago, I had an episode where I talked a little bit about the difference between an interview and a conversation and how important it is in podcasting to really focus in on having those conversations, not just those interviews. And one of the important points that I made during that was that a list of questions is simply an interview and doesn't invite any sort of conversation. In fact, all it does is tee up your guest to be the only resourceful voice in the room when you as a podcast host also want to build trust with your audience and establish yourself as an authority. So you need to participate in a conversation, not just in an interview. Now, typically, listed questions are boring. Typically, questions that tee your guest up for an answer or for a way to promote themselves and themselves only, they're boring. What's more interesting? When you dig deeper. When instead of asking a guest, hey, I hear you have a book about getting more leads. Tell me more about that book. Instead of that, how about a more interesting question? Tell me a story about one time when your tactics didn't work and why you think they didn't work for a particular client of yours. It's okay to get a little bit testy. It's okay to dig deeper and demand more from your guest. Now, too often, a mistake that we make as podcasters is we don't really know our guests. We bring them on because they were referred by somebody and our friend said they would make a good guest. So we say, okay, we'll have them on the show. I don't really know what they're going to talk about. Maybe their book, which, helps my audience in some way. So good enough. And we might hop on a 15-minute call just to make sure they're a good fit and they have good sound and video and stuff. And then it's okay, you're in, you're on. I'll see you this date and this time and we'll record a podcast episode. Then we get on the podcast episode. We don't really know this person. We're creating this content with this person who we don't really know. And as a result, we're a little skittish on going all in. We're a little hesitant to ask them the really difficult questions that really draw out the majority of their expertise. Instead, we keep it surface level because we want to keep it safe. We don't want to dig too deep. Makes for a boring podcast episode. Makes for a podcast episode that doesn't truly help your audience solve the problems they came to solve. You need to get deeper with your guests. And so again, ask them for more stories. Ask them for a scenario when their philosophy on something was challenged and what they did to overcome that. Simply ask them to dig deeper. If they're giving you the old press conference answers, don't even move on to your next question. Just ask them to dig deeper. There's nothing wrong with that. Because again, you are not just an interviewer. You're part of the conversation. It's okay to take an opposite viewpoint. There's so many memes and YouTube videos on the internet mocking podcasting, right? Because the idea of a podcast is bringing somebody on saying, hey, how you doing? I'm so happy you're here. And then just echoing every single point they make and then saying, oh, that's such a great point after every single point they make, and just making the guest look like some great superhero star. And then at the end, letting the guest ramble on for 10 minutes about why the audience should buy their coaching program and every single book they've written since 1994. That's how the internet thinks of podcasting. I really have a hard time believing that those are the podcast episodes that our audiences want to show up for. So I'm not saying to make it an all-out shouting match. It's good to have guests on who echo your opinions and echo your points of views and deliver value and good points, but don't just set them up to be some shining star so that they can sell all their courses and books. Give them a call to action at the end. Make sure they keep it within 30 seconds and make sure the episode is really centered around the value that you're providing to your audience. That's the key to a good podcast episode. It doesn't have boring questions and instead builds trust and establishes you as an authority because of the solutions you're willing to provide, whether it's through yourself or through your guests. I hope that helped you today. And I know that's a little bit humbling for all of us. And before I end, I just want to say, if you're in that position where you're just interviewing, you're not having a conversation, you're just interviewing, you're realizing it's a little bit humbling, right? Like, ouch, yeah, I do just bring on guests and flatter them and make them the star of the show, and I don't really deliver as much value as I could be. It's okay. We've all been there, and many of us are still there. I'm a recovering people pleaser myself. And so many of my podcast episodes are like that, still to this day. But recognizing the direction that you want to head in and how you want to improve your show is a really important, actually an essential piece of becoming a better podcaster and content creator. And recognizing that might be a shortcoming and something that you need to improve on is the most important thing. So I hope that helped you. I'm not here to call you out, but I'm here to help you move in the direction that you need to as a podcaster. And if there's ever anything that I can help you with more specifically, or if you want to talk more about this, head on over to storytrust.media because that's where I'm offering you something that really is hard to pass up on because we know problems are solved through conversations, right? Podcasting is a great example of this. My business has grown so much. I started my business thanks to podcasts, right? I wouldn't have had the courage or the know how to do anything without podcasts. So, what I'm offering you is a free 30-minute consultation. It provides you with an ebook that I've written about audio quality, because that's one area that often holds people back when it comes to starting podcasts. I'll provide you with a content audit of what you're doing right now, if you're doing anything content wise online, and give you a roadmap for why podcasting might be the content creation engine solution that you need. And then we'll talk. And I'll share my experience and hopefully point you in the right direction when it comes to your podcasting journey. So you can book that at storytrust.media right now. And I look forward to talking with you.
Thanks for checking out the Story Trust Media podcast. Learn more about what Story Trust Media can do for your business and book a free consultation at storytrust.media.